Okay, let's get into it. We're going to talk about our top 10 Christmas gift ideas for this Christmas season. They're not in any particular order. It's not in order of most expensive to cheapest, best to worst, or anything like that. It's simply 10 items that we chose that we felt like we could pass on to you as being great gift ideas. And they're going to range in price from extremely affordable and cheap to a little bit more on the expensive end. Let's get right into it. Our first Christmas gift idea is this Rock Island M5 shotgun. It's a 12 gauge shotgun, 12 gauge pump action shotgun. It'll hold 2 3/4 inch and 3-inch shotgun rounds. It cycles both of them very smoothly. You'll notice the stroke of this thing is really sharp. That's the beginning of the stroke, end of the stroke. Notice how sharp it is. Notice how smooth it is. Now again, we're not cycling a 3-inch round through it right now, but notice how smooth that is. That's extremely smooth. Now that's great if it holds up over time. And I have every reason to believe that it will, but that's extremely smooth. I mean, look at that. It cycles so smooth. It's a 20-inch barrel. The whole gun itself is 40 inches long. It's a great self-defense gun. Of course, I love the nickel plating on this thing, or the nickel finish on it. But it's a great self-defense shotgun, home shotgun. As you can see, the overall length of it being 40 inches is extremely easy to maneuver around the house if you have to. But you can take this thing hunting if you want to. Again, it's going to shoot 2 3/4 inch and 3-inch shotgun shells. The thing I like about it is it weighs a little bit. It's got some weight to it. And I like that because if mom wants to grab the gun, or your son, and he's a young teenage son, somebody smaller that wants to grab this gun, yeah, it's a little heavy when you grab it, but it's not going to kick quite so hard whenever they fire it. So at 7.5 pounds, it's a little heavy for some of the guns that are on the market. But again, this is typically not a gun that you're going to be carrying through the woods or carrying with you in a boat or in a duck blind, although you can. This is not usually why a gun like this is purchased. It's usually for some type of home defense reasons. Speaking of hunting, check out these hunting jackets right here that we ran across over at Corey's clothing store in Sulphur, Louisiana. Check out this first jacket. It's a Columbia Max 4 jacket. It's your typical stay warm and stay dry type hunting jacket. We also have the Under Armour Max 4 jacket. Same thing, stay dry, stay warm. And one of my favorites, it's one of my favorite brands, is the Drake jackets. The Drake clothing line, period. They make great caps, jackets, shirts, you name it. Drake makes some great hunting gear. Holds up really, really well over time. This is the Drake Blades camo jacket. Again, like the other three, like the Columbia, like the Under Armour, all three of these jackets, they're a little bit on the high end. You're going to pay between $200 and $300 for these jackets, which again, you can get at Corey's over in Sulphur, Louisiana. However, these jackets will last you forever. Not only will they last you forever, you're not going to have to bulk up as much as you normally would as far as wearing layers of clothes, because these 3 jackets provide that layer of protection against the cold and the wetness out there. So you're going to get, it's an all-in-one jacket. Again, you don't have to get all these layers. Now you can. These 3 jackets, they incorporate with their other lines as well. In other words, you can get some liners that will zip inside and whatnot. So they work perfectly in conjunction with the rest of the line. Again, Columbia, Under Armour, and Drake. But you can use these jackets totally by themselves, and they're great jackets. Very comfortable. You can just tell when you grab one of these jackets, you can tell the quality is there. Again, I want to encourage you again to go to Corey's over in Sulphur, Louisiana. They're going to take care of you. Casey and Mr. Corey both will take really good care of you. We shop there all the time. In fact, this shirt is from Corey's also. So we shop there a lot. They got great prices. Quality, you're not going to walk out of there with anything that's cheap. It doesn't exist in their store. Everything is top quality stuff. That's why people go there. The next holiday gift idea I want to talk to you about is this Nikon M308 scope. This scope is incredible. This scope, it almost ties its own shoes for itself. This thing is engineered specifically for the .308 Winchester and 7.62 NATO cartridge. The reticle and adjustment system is calibrated, it's specific to the bullet trajectory of the .308 Winchester cartridge. It also has a reset to zero turret feature, which of course simplifies sight ends and field adjustments. It includes an M308 mount with a 20 MOA slope. iBox technology, yeah, that's there. 4 times zoom range, 4 inches of constant eye relief. Let me tell you something about this eye relief. This thing here, you're not going to sit there and have to sneak up on this scope in order to see through it. The eye relief is there from all kinds of different angles. If you're like me and you don't use a scope very often, a scope can be a challenge, and I'm just being honest with you. I'm not an expert. I'm not one of these guys that goes out every weekend and looks through a scope. So when I put my eye to a scope, if I have to sit there and chase my view that I'm looking for, it's not a good scope to me. This thing, you're not chasing it. The M308 scope, you're not hunting for your sight picture. You're gonna find it quick. It also has an ultra clear coat optical system. What this does is it boosts the light transmission to its theoretical maximum, which is 95%. And as you can see, I mounted this particular M308 on my POF 308, and check out how smooth it looks. I mean, it's perfect. As you can see, I've got this one mounted with a Leopold mount onto the actual gun itself. The thing about this Leopold mount, they're made a little bit better, and I'm not trying to compare the two, but the Nikon mount did not seem as sturdy and as thick and as well made as the Leopold. The next item on the Legally Armed America Christmas list is this Reindeer Arms Raptor charging handle for an AR-15 or an AR-10, like we just talked about the POF 308. This charging handle will mount on pretty much any AR platform gun out there. This thing is awesome. The cool thing about this particular charging handle is it's ambidextrous. If you notice, typically you're pulling on the left-hand side to charge your handle on your gun. Well, this one here has a spring-loaded system on the inside of it that when you pull on the right-hand side as well, it's going to release that charging latch as well. Now, the cool thing about that is if you're putting a large scope on your gun, like that Nikon that we put on that POF, you're going to have to reach around and sometimes under the scope. And this is just nicer if you're right-handed, because you're going to be able to reach a little bit more ergonomically pleasant underneath on the right-hand side if you have to. If you don't have a large extension, a lot of people will put a tactical or some kind of a extension charging handle to release that latch on the left-hand side. This way you don't necessarily have to do that. You have the best of both worlds. You can still charge it from the left-hand side if you want to, but the right-hand side will give you that adequate release on that charging latch. Another really cool and good gift idea that many times is overlooked is simply a renewal or a first-time membership to a gun range. That's extremely helpful because many times your shooters this time of year are either in a tree stand or they're hunting or they're doing something out in the field, and a lot of times they're not thinking about renewing or re-upping their range access. So by going and getting that, again, if it's a first-time hunt, if you have a first-time hunter or shooter in your family that doesn't have a range membership, go out and get them one. You'd be surprised. Many of your range memberships, they range between $100 and $200 a year with no additional cost when you go to the range, unless, of course, you're shooting skeet or something like that. I recommend going to the Lake Charles Gun Club. That's where I have a membership. It's $150 a year. It covers, again, like I said earlier, all the different aspects of the range itself. Outside of skeet. When you go shoot skeet, obviously you have to pay small fees for the actual skeet themselves. But they have a full skeet area. In fact, a couple times a year they have skeet stations that are stationed throughout all the rest of the gun range. So I guess you would call them a mobile station or something like that out in the woods. And it's really cool because they'll run you through that. They'll have these big skeet shooting matches. But even on a regular basis, you have all this automated launching of the skeet where you can go shoot skeet. You have a rifle range that goes from 25 yards to 600 yards. And the higher distances, I believe it's from maybe 200 yards on up to the 600 yards, they're undercover. So, I mean, you can actually go undercover and sight your deer rifle in or something like that out there with no problems whatsoever. They also have a great pistol range. The pistol range is completely covered up. They ask that you shoot various types of targets that they have with the square frames. They don't like you to shoot some of these things out there. People bring you steel out there and whatnot. There's some safety issues involved in the liability aspect of it at most of these ranges. So always check before you bring some of your, and there's some really cool stuff out there, but some of the targets that you might want to shoot at, some of the bouncing targets and things like that you shoot at, a lot of ranges don't like to use those. Again, there's a liability aspect tied to that. So a lot of times you want to read those rules and make sure you understand those rules. Obviously, every range out there, there's not a range out there that doesn't stress and push safety. Always read your safety rules, because a good range master will bounce you off that range if you're doing something crazy or outside the rules, endangering your safety or somebody else's safety. Again, I like the Lake Charles Gun Club. It's wide open. There's a lot of room out there. It's a nice place to go. I definitely encourage you that if you have an opportunity, run out there and surprise your loved one. Get a gift certificate. They can go back out there and fill out all their information and stuff like that for their particular range access and their membership. But a lot of fun. That's something, again, that a lot of people overlook this time of year, is a membership to a range. And it's a really cool gift idea. Imagine sticking that in a stocking and your loved one seeing that. I mean, he's going to give you the old, didn't even think about that. Great gift idea right there. Speaking of the range, one of the things you might go out and get, and it's really inexpensive, is paper targets. A lot of these targets nowadays are so much better than the older targets that we used to have, where it was simply a piece of paper with lines drawn on it and a number. These splatter, I don't know what you want to call them, they call them splattering targets. They're really cool targets. In many cases, they're going to give you an indication, a very good visual indication that people like me need with really poor eyes. A good visual indication whenever you shoot these things a good distance away. Of course, this is how they come. Many of them are the same way. But whenever you shoot them, they're visible. You can see them. And a lot of these different ones, especially like these, the shoot and see, they have the, if you notice, if you're lucky enough to be peppering the bullseye, you've actually got 6 replacement dots for your bullseye to cover it up. So you can keep reusing these targets. And of course, you see down here in the corner, you've got some black dots where you can, again, you've got 6 of those, where you can fill in some of the splatter, because this particular target will splatter into that green look. I mean, in other words, it's going to have that green once you hit the bullet, the target with the bullet. So you can actually reuse these a few times. What I like about some of these targets is that they give you things to shoot at. If you notice this one right here, you've got this red square right here and right here in the chest area. And of course, you got all this gray area and of course the blue. So it's not like you shoot it 3 times and the target's done. Even though this is a very small target, which makes it somewhat inexpensive, you actually have a lot to shoot at. Now, if you're some kind of a random shooter that you're just blasting it and you're showering shots all over the place, this is probably not the one that you want to shoot. If you're sighting something in and you start out at 100 yards and you've never even mounted the scope on the gun before, this is probably not what you want to use, because a couple of inches off and you're not even going to see where you're hitting. But this is a good one if you have a consistent grouping. This is one of my favorite targets right here. Another cool gift that I like that a lot of people don't think of in terms of the gun range is a good staple gun. Believe me, anybody out there that's had a bad staple gun and gone to the range and tried to put targets up with it, you remember why this is such a valuable product. You're going to pay a little bit more for some of these. They're a little bit easier to engage. I mean, sometimes the other ones are a little bit harder to engage. This one right here, this is a True Tac. It's actually made by Arrow. This is a good one because what this one does is it takes a number of different size staples, But what I like is it'll take a 1/4 inch staple. So you're going to get, if you have cardboard and wood that you're nailing through, this is gonna pound it in there. It's gonna make it stay. Nothing more frustrating than the range goes cold and everybody goes down and puts their targets up, a gust of wind comes and it rips your targets off. This is gonna keep that from happening. I also encourage you, just like I just said, get the longer staples if you get a chance to. Put these in your stocking, 20 bucks. Put this in your stocking, a box of staples. Believe me, your loved one may not get all excited and start high-fiving you at that very moment, but I promise you, this and that box of staples will wind up in their range bag, and every time they go to the range, it's going to be there, and they will have this thing for years to come. Another thing that many people might overlook, they go for the obvious things like a gun and like ammo, primers. If your loved one has a nice bench set up where they reload, especially if they're shooting any kind of competition, whether it's shotgun, handguns, or whatever, or even long guns, primers. There was a time within the last year where primers, gunpowder, even bullets, and sometimes brass were near impossible to get. Just now you can get on websites and even go into some local retailers and find some of these items for reloading that you could not find. You couldn't beg for these. In fact, many websites actually wouldn't even let you back order. They would just say, ordering for this is canceled at this time. Go, if you're not sure what primers you need, because there are differences in primers, don't buy any primers. Go in your loved one's area where they reload now. Don't fool with their stuff, because if they're anything like me, they got their stuff where they want it. But go in there and look for boxes like this. Look for small pistol primers or different types of primers. Look for a box that they have. If you have to, take a picture with your phone or something like that and then go down to a gun shop or something and show the person working there, or just look for them and see. I got these at Gator Guns, which is very unusual because they typically don't carry a lot of reloading supplies, but they did have some. And in fact, I was in there the other day and they still have some primers. They don't have a bunch of the other reloading supplies because, again, they don't fancy themselves as a reloading store. However, it was a nice surprise to see some in there when I went in there the other day, because I'm in there all the time. So go check out, see what kind of primers, and you may even, take it a step further. It doesn't have to be just primers. Primers just happen to be something that were hard to find. And let me tell you something. If you go in there into your loved one's gun reloading area and you already see 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 of these, especially if your loved one reloads for competition, don't be afraid of that. Buy more. Believe me, these aren't going bad, and they're going to use them up. And again, there's going to come a time when they may not be able to get their hands on these quite as readily as you can right now. I hate to say this, but we're only one more school shooting or one more gun control law being proposed away from all this stuff disappearing again. So if you can get your hands on some primers for your loved one, get them. He'll be thankful, and believe me, they will get used up. Another great gift idea when we talk about value and quality is the Ruger 1911. Let me tell you something. This Ruger pistol that Ruger came out with, from a quality standpoint, when you compare that to the price and other 1911s that are on the market right now, there's not a whole lot of comparison. You know the Ruger name. You know what these guys make. They make quality products. There's no questioning that. When they entered into the 1911 market, I thought to myself at first, okay, what's their price point going to be? Are they going to come in with the Ruger reputation and offer a $1,200 1911? No, not hardly. Under $700. This thing is a well-made, beautiful gun. Ruger clearly decided to get into the 1911 market and get guns into the market first to prove to people that they were going to give you that same Ruger quality in their 1911. So they got into it to try to get people to buy the gun. If you get in on the front end of it, like right now, while this 1911 is still new and hot to the market, believe me, you're going to get, from a value standpoint, one of the best priced guns, and overall quality. Again, I mean, what can you say about this gun? This gun, if you tried to buy the same gun that has the characteristics of this gun and say a Kimber or a Colt or even a Springfield for that matter, which is another very good value on the market, this thing being under $700 for what you've got on here, your beaver tail, you've got your, looks like 25 lines per inch checkering on the back strap. It's just a beautiful gun. This gun will probably run you $800, $900, something like that. Again, we're talking about under $700. This gun is a tremendous value. I highly recommend it. If you've shot a 1911, then you know I don't need to go into the ergonomics and things like that. It's a great 1911. It's a wonderful 1911. If you are one of the Glock guys out there or polygun guys that have always wanted a 1911, but you aren't going to spend that kind of money that those crazy nut jobs do on their 1911s, I'm being one of them, you probably don't, you can take a chance on this, and it's not taking a chance. Go out and get you one. Check it out. Great value. Again, under $700 for everything that you get on this gun. Really hard to pass it up. Again, if you're curious about getting into the 1911 market, don't blow your money on these really cheap dirtbag guns out there that are real clunky, super heavy. The action's not really great on them. I mean, this thing here's got tremendous action. I mean, everything is smooth. There's not a whole lot of rattle on the gun, so your tolerances are kept somewhat low for a lower priced gun. Again, if you're looking for Ruger quality in a 1911, they put it in their gun. They did a great job on this SR 1911. The last thing I want to talk about on our Legally Armed America Christmas wish list is gun apps. There's all kind of apps out there, whether you're an Android user or an Apple iPhone or iPad user. There are tons of apps out there that you can access. Some of them are really cool. Some of them are apps that simulate the actual workings of a gun. This particular app will simulate the action of the gun. It even has the exact amount of ammunition that particular gun holds in order to fire it, and will allow you to reload it and re-engage the gun in order to fire again. Really, really cool. There's other apps that will allow you to find local gun ranges, places to shoot. Really, really cool. It uses your location on the phone And depending on where you're at, when you go and access the app, it will tell you gun ranges or places to go shoot in that particular area. There are other apps that show gun competitions in the area. If you shoot competition, it'll allow you to go in there and punch in your zip code or something like that, and it will tell you where shooting competitions are in that particular area where you're at. Really, really cool. So I highly recommend that. You can actually, I'm not sure how the Droid system works because I don't have an Android. I have iPhones or iPads. I use Apple. I know that as far as Apple, you can go get these gift cards and get a gift certificate to the iTunes store in order to purchase these apps. You can stuff a stocking with those things. So that's kind of neat too. I know Android's going to have the same thing. I just don't know what the right terminology is of where you can go to do that. I would honestly have to say that go to the Android App Store, and I'm sure there's some kind of way to get a gift certificate. But I know they actually make the iTunes cards that you can get, I believe in Target and places like that. And you can load those things up with dollars and give it in a stocking, and people can go out and buy those apps. Really, there's some really cool apps out there. Just go into your app store and type in gun or gun apps or something like that. You'd be surprised at pretty cool stuff they have in there. Some people have put a lot of time and effort in to making some really good apps that are out there on the market today. On behalf of Chad Marino and Paul Glasgow, Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a very safe New Year. Watch out for these fools with the knockout game. If you need to play along, but make sure you're right when you do it.